with no further ado, here's Dr. Rodman.
Okay. Thank you, Marion. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm among friends. You know, it's nice. I spent probably at least 2 decades, although I lived here, only half time because I was on the road the other time, talking to people all over the country, sometimes Canada. You just automatically compare your hometown to this new place, and Falmouth always compared favorably, except for this one town where I went in, and as I drove into town, on a marquee, it said, "God bless our seniors." I said, that's fantastic. Look at that, how they value their elders. Of course, the sign was at a high school. But I choose to ignore that, you know. I'm very pleased to, which one did I pull out? Oh, just the power cord, that's all right. There you go. I'm really pleased to talk about, I always talk about healthy longevity, but to be able to focus the results, or how you get healthy longevity and what you need to do that, to the whole idea of volunteering, it's a natural connection. But I haven't done that in the past, and so I really appreciated this opportunity to do that. So that's my plan. As soon as here it is. There's too much technology, you know, around. There's me, okay, you recognize that. So we're going to talk about volunteering and your personal health. We'll start with personal health, however. So, you know, is this your path? I hope not. Right now, this is the path of the majority of people in this country. They're born, they become their best, they fire on all cylinders for a decade or two, and then stuff starts to happen. You know, we live longer now, but there's no guarantee that that longer life is of high quality. So that's really what we're looking for, is not this. I mean, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than a slide with a painful end. And there is, or else I wouldn't be here. More and more, we're seeing the ability and how to do this to stay at high levels, maybe not the very high. This here is, you know, one of life's curveballs coming, boom. And do you bounce back, or do you start the decline down there? And so this is healthy longevity. And this is looking for the quality as well as the quantity in your life. And in fact, what it really is, that's what the book is about, you know, live long, die short, not short. Someone actually asked me, does that mean I'm going to be shorter when I die? I said, yeah, you probably will be, but that's not what I'm talking about. This is about quickly and staying at as high a level of performance as possible, longer and longer. Ashley Montague, the writer, says, die young, as late as possible. So I think that captures what we're trying to do. So healthy longevity is something that we definitely look for, and it's achievable. And the first we got to know that it was achievable was the results of a 10-year-long study that was done in Chicago, well, all over the world, but based at the MacArthur Foundation in Chicago. And they studied aging for 10 years, those who aged extremely well, like the dotted line, and those who didn't, and try to see what it was that was the difference between them. And their conclusions after that time, it was very clear. Up until then, we thought genes or luck or whatever. Lifestyle. The choices that you make every day are up to 70% determine how you're going to age. Those are the choices that you make every day. Your choices. By the way, never too late. So, you know, you can leave the room now, and I hope I'll fired up to volunteer, but also to take care of healthy longevity too. But it's achievable because they found that to the extent we continued moving, you'll hear more about this, that you challenged your mind, that you were socially connected, and that you had meaning and purpose in your life. Those were the key things that determined how you were going to age. And again, you can start late. It was never too late, never too early to begin doing it. So that was the MacArthur Foundation. Now, many of you probably have heard of the Blue Zones? Blue Zones. Dan Buettner, an author, some years ago wanted to find out, where in the world do people live to be very old but are very vital? So they're 90, 100, but they're really full of juice, you know? And so he identified 5 places in the world, and he called them Blue Zones. And they were Okinawa, an island in Greece, Costa Rica, Sardinia, get ready for this one, Loma Linda, California. Are you kidding me? Southern California, they're crazy there. You know, they rush around, they're nuts. But in Loma Linda, you may know, there is a very large contingent of Seventh-day Adventists. And their lifestyle, very much akin to the others, and the lifestyle that the MacArthur Foundation found would more likely result in a healthy longevity experience. So in these Blue Zones, what he found is that they continue to move. If you saw there's a Netflix show about this. And most of these, not Loma Linda, but the others are these villages that are on these mountains, and these older adults are going up and down the mountain. So, but you didn't have to be a mountain, just kept moving. Very strong social connections. Didn't matter what age you were. You know, older adults were considered cultural treasures. How many of you feel like a cultural treasure? I'm glad you do, sir. But someone beside your wife, you know. No, I don't mean beside you, I mean, anyway. I usually say that when I'm at a dinner or something and a photographer comes and wants to take our picture. I say, she's not my wife. But it is, 55 years worth. Anyway, Bill knows her. So a slower pace of life. We are a culturally, and most of the Western countries have developed into a frenetic pace that is killing us, by the way. It's rotting us from within. And we're not geared to live this way. For 95% of the time or more, actually more like 99% of the time we've been on Earth, we were hunter-gatherers. Truly, that's true. 99% of the time our species has walked the Earth. We were hunter-gatherers, living this way. There was no sense of time. It was sunrise, sunset, moon, seasons. That was it. We're living like this, and it's killing us. But there are ways we can adapt, but it's not that we're not built as, and a good part of our disease is related to this stress. Up to 70-80% of all medical visits involve stress in some way. We're seeing cancer in younger adults more and more now. It's really, it's frightening. And Harvard just recently wrote a paper that says there's a lot of environmental factors, chemicals, the environment, nutrition, and all that, but stress is a huge one. Anyway, slower pace. What they ate was basically the Mediterranean diet, which we just discovered a little while ago. It's a great diet. Isn't this a great idea? It's what our species has been eating for most of the time they've been on Earth. So naturally, we respond better to it. We perform better with it. You know, that's fruits, nuts, vegetables, wild grains, fish, and small amounts of meat. They were hunter-gatherers, but they weren't that good at it until, you know, around 10,000 years ago, they started to domesticate animals, and then we had more meat. The role, everyone had a role. Kids, older adults, everyone had a role. No one was marginalized. It was expected. In Okinawa, you ask someone how old they are, and they'll lie to you and tell you they're older. Because to be older is to be revered, yes, but it's also to be an essential part of the community. I mean, why wouldn't it be that way? It's crazy to marginalize older adults. They're survivors. They've seen more. There is wisdom there. They can be annoying, yes, but they've learned a lot. And to not listen to them, to marginalize them the way our culture does, that's nuts. And you're very lucky in one of these societies if you have older adults. Very close to nature. We go visit nature and say, isn't it wonderful? We are part of nature, and that's how we live most of the time. You know, we share 15% of our DNA with a daffodil. Maybe 45 to 50% with a tree. If it's a fruit tree, it's about 60, 65%. Okay, mammals, now we're up to about 80, 85. And primates, you don't want to know. It'll freak you out how much we share DNA. We are all this, same materials, We're in nature, and we've become divorced of it. We control it, and we're suffering from that. Anyway, this is the environment and the lifestyle of people in the blue zones who do live longer. This lady won the Nobel Prize for her work on telomeres. Telomeres are the very ends of chromosomes. This is a chromosome. No, your chromosomes are not. What color is that? I only had 8 crayons in my box. What? Mauve or something? I don't know. Anyway, these are telomeres. These are the ends of a chromosome. So every time a cell divides, the chromosomes duplicate themselves, and they lose a little bit of the end. Now, if you lose the end and there's DNA material there, the cell dies, the organ dies, and the organism dies. She found that people who lived the lifestyle that we're talking about here, that MacArthur did and the blue zones did, the telomeres stay longer. They're like the end of a shoelace. They protect so it doesn't unravel, the DNA doesn't unravel. If that's not enough, there's a whole new field of epigenetics. Epigenetics is, well, you can see it here, it's a science that reveals how choices that we make can change your genes. Bet you didn't know that. So we can now map the human chromosome. So if Bill spits in a little can, we can bring it and we can lay out all of his genes. Okay, Bill, that's a good one, Ooh, that one's not so good. And so then we do studies with people who have that gene, and they live one lifestyle, and the other lives a different lifestyle. And living this lifestyle we're talking about, many of those genes never express themselves. They just lay there dormant. So this is about, you can have a bad gene, but it doesn't have to cause the disease. And this whole field of epigenetics is finding out more and more about how our lifestyle, other things too, can just have that gene, the genes we don't want to express themselves, not to do that. So your lifestyle controlling your genes. All right, so we're really talking about resilience here because we all know life throws us curveballs, right? And when they do, you know, sometimes it's boom, just like that. Other times we bounce back. And resilience comes from living the lifestyle. All the research since MacArthur has validated that. And how much we move, learn, connect, and have meaning and purpose, to sum it up. And that's resilience. I wrote this and with 10 tips, but I'm going to boil down the tips today to just the basic core, which I've already kind of mentioned. The first one is moving. You know, a paper came out just about 2 years ago from the Mayo Clinic, and the title of the paper was, "Sitting is the New Smoking." We're learning. We are a sedentary society, unfortunately. The statistics show that half of our population, all ages, could be labeled as sedentary, depending upon how much time they sit. You know, in Shakespeare's time, you wouldn't even be sitting listening to me, you'd be standing. And our hunter-gatherers, they would take 25, 30,000 steps a day. They weren't measuring it, of course, but the tribes we have today out there that are still hunter-gatherers do that. And so we were meant to move. We found, oh, guess what? Our brain works better when we move. Oh, guess what? Our heart works better. Oh, our muscles, our GI tract, our neurology, everything works better when we move. You know, we're not talking running marathons here. In the blue zones, they don't have gyms and exercise equipment and things like that. They just move. In today's society, it's very difficult. You know, we have elevators, escalators, people movers. I love that one. People mover. And, you know, and so we're geared up to spend a good part of our day sitting. Even our work, a lot of our work with cubicles and things, and behind a screen. 65% of our time is behind a screen. We're usually sitting. So we're not going the right way relative to this. The bill on that sedentary society is about $53 billion in medical bills, solely due to sedentary lifestyle. Solely. That's the wrong way. A friend of mine's a CEO of a large Fortune 500 company, actually, and he told me, he said, I read your book, and he said, you know what I did after that? I said, I called in all my VPs, and I said, I'm giving you a new parking spot. It's a mile from the door. So, you know, but they did, and one tried to have a bike, you know, he didn't. No, you got to walk it. So twice a day, well, they at least walk 2 miles every day. So what he found, they got healthier, they got more productive actually. They then were evangelical about it and did it in their apartments, in their departments, and changed the whole culture of the company to one of health, where their healthcare costs just plummeted and their productivity went up. So moving, and again, it's it's not hard. You can take a call walking. You can park a little further. You can take some stairs. Just move a little bit more. That's all. And whatever you do, if you're going to change anything, do it in small, literally steps here, but small steps, because it's a very complicated thing about how our brain works. But when we make a New Year's resolution, how many are doing something they made a New Year's resolution to do? Yeah, that's what I thought. We set off something in our brain, in the amygdala, which is the fear center, which basically dooms our efforts to make that change. But if we do it in small steps, the amygdala doesn't fire. We now can see it on a brain scan. It doesn't fire, and so we can do it. And, well, I'll tell you a quick story. So a patient of mine, he was a heart attack ready to happen, okay? Tony. He was pre-diabetic, overweight, high blood pressure. It's very sedentary. He was smoking. We got him to stop that, but that was it. And so he was a heart attack ready to happen. So when I was doing the book, I said, okay, Tony, when I see you next week, for the next week, I just want you to stand during TV commercials. That's it? I said, yeah, that's it. So he walks in next week. I did it, Doc. Probably the first time he's really done any. Well, he did quit smoking, but that was a while back. So I said, that's good. Now I want you to walk in place. He did that. And so over a year, off all meds, no longer pre-diabetic, not hypertensive, people telling him he looks so good. He lost 53 pounds. And his lifestyle is one that he now can continue. When you make changes in little steps like that, you're patient, it's durable. You can lose a lot of weight if you just eat bark, or Brussels sprouts or whatever, but you can't sustain that. This is sustainable because it's done in small steps. Anyway, that's called Kaizen. You want to look it up. It's a Japanese approach to change in small steps. All right, things happen, so you got to accommodate, Okay, I can't walk anymore, so I'm just going to sit. No, maybe you can do something else, You can do chair aerobics and chair yoga, but, accommodate, because life, you all know. How many joints do we have here, artificial joints? I got 2. Come on, you're not sharing. All right, so there's the physical part. Now the brain, very important for mental health. This is Nola, and she's an icon because she's the oldest person to get an undergraduate degree at 95. And she grew up on a farm, Indiana, I think. And what she knew, or maybe she didn't, but she did it anyway, something I didn't learn and Bill didn't learn when we were in medical school together, about the neuroplasticity. This is a new concept. It's something we have discovered, and it is the lifelong ability of the brain to rewire itself in response to disease, injury, or what we want to do. Yeah, you have that ability. It's lifelong. So there was this lady who was a neuroanatomist at Harvard. She knew the brain. 39 years old, she had a stroke, big bleed, killed a lot of her neurons. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk. She knew about neuroplasticity. And so she did what she needed to do, and I'll talk about that. And you can see her now on a TED Talk. Her name is Jill Taylor. And you would think this lady giving a TED Talk, nothing wrong with her, but she did. She totally recovered. It doesn't happen to everyone, but when you know that certain things you can do can grow new pathways. All her cells are dead. They're not coming back. But they can see on her brain scan that the neural pathways around the dead area are getting bigger all the time. They were little footpaths, now they're like highways. And that's because of what she did. What did she do? She challenged herself, okay? She learned new things, and a lot of the learned things she was learning were things that she used to know but forgot after the stroke. and she paid attention to her cardiovascular health because the brain is a small organ, only 2.5% of our body, but it takes 20% of the calories, the energy, everything. So you can't mess with the brain. If you don't give it the blood it needs, it's not going to respond. You give it the blood it needs, it's better. So dementia is actually going down in the world as far as incidence. That's new cases and per population. It's going up in numbers because the demographic, there's a whole lot of older people. But it's actually not occurring as often as it used to because we're paying attention to the heart and cardiovascular health and knowing about neuroplasticity. So learn something new. It doesn't have, it can be, if you start to learn Japanese, your brain scan will show your brain getting bigger in the language area over time. But it can be a small thing. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. Just learn a new word a day, learn a new way to get somewhere, learn how to use some technology, just small stuff. Just keep challenging your brain. You don't have to win a gold medal, but just challenge your brain. Okay. So, and again, pay attention to the cardiovascular health. So keep moving. And by the way, she did get her master's degree at 98. I wasn't sounding the way I should. Anyway, so stay connected. This doesn't seem to be a problem when we're younger, usually, although it is getting there. You ask 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds, they're feeling very lonely, but older adults in particular start to feel lonely. They lose spouses, they lose friends. Their friends move to Florida, and before they come back because of the flooding, you're alone without them. Anyway, so this is a huge problem. In fact, Britain and Canada and I think Australia and Ireland have established departments of loneliness, ministries of loneliness, because they're socialized medicine countries and their healthcare costs are going up, and they felt they needed to address loneliness, not only because it's the right thing to do, but for the financial reasons. And it's a big problem in our country. And we have so many people at neighborhood Falmouth visits, and almost all, I would think, live alone. A few couples I would imagine, but for the most part they live alone, and that is contributing to their whatever limitations they have. There's no question about it. Social connection is who we are. Think of our hunter-gatherer background. It's who we are. I have a friend who was in Vietnam. He was a pilot. He was shot down. He was a prisoner for 7 years. He was in solitary confinement, a lot of that, and he was tortured frequently. He told me that when he was in solitary and they came to get him to torture him, he was actually happy. Can you imagine? The pain of being tortured was not as bad as the pain of being alone in a cell. We are not meant to be alone. I know people are annoying as hell sometimes, but we need each other. We're better together. And so to me, that speaks volumes about how much we need each other. When someone is socially connected, they are anywhere from 2 to 5 times less likely to get heart disease, cancer, dementia, depression, the whole deal, all the big players, if we're connected to others. Don't necessarily have to live with someone, but you have to be connected to someone in a substantive way. Neighborhood Falmouth and as volunteers, that's a huge thing that you do. You know that, I know, because just the connection. Some of the visits, they don't even have to do anything for the person. They're just there to be with them, to be with another human, which is absolutely required. So Stamatis Moritis here, he's a fashionista from Greece. Anyway, he was a World War II guy from Greece, fought in Greece, and he was wounded, and he was sent to the United States to heal, and he did, and he was allowed to stay, and he married and had a career and kids and grandkids. When he was 69, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and his doctor told him, Stamatis, you got about a year. He said, oh, bummer. He said, well, funerals are cheaper in Greece. I'm going to go back to Greece. So he went back to Greece, to the island where he was born. He crawled into bed and waited to die. Nothing happened. So like a good Greek man, he went down to the taverna And there are all of his childhood friends. Hey, good to see you. They have a heck of a time. And they start doing that regularly. And he's feeling better, so he said, so he plants a vineyard and he works in his buddy's olive grove. And last we heard he was 102. I think he's passed, but he was about 106. And he says, it's the wine. Yeah, I drink it with my friends. And we all look for a magic cure. This is a magic cure, social connection. A friend of mine said it well, better to eat fries with friends than broccoli alone. This is more important than all the other things that we do for the most part. And this is the last one. So there were three: physical, intellectual, social. This one is about meaning and purpose. This is spirituality. This is, you can call it almost anything. This is finding out what your life is about. Mary Oliver, she lived on the Cape for quite a while, the poet. This is her quote from one of her poems. And this is meant not only for young people, this is for everyone and, every day. Because the meaning and purpose that you had most of your lives is different now, right? And it evolves regularly with your life. Things that were important, you either took care of them or you don't think they're important anymore with the wisdom that you've gained. But it's critically important that we have a reason to get up out of bed every day, and that we can be connected to others. And the purpose that I have seen that is the most beneficial, that helps the most and motivates people, is something that has to do with other living things. So humans, of course, animals, plants, the earth. These are the things that are really powerful medicine relative to healthy longevity. Alfie Date is the oldest guy in Australia. He gets up every day to knit sweaters for penguins. These penguins have been exposed to oil spills, and he knits them a sweater so they can't preen their feathers and ingest the oil and die. So when they have the sweater on, they can't, pick at where the oil is. And so that saves their lives. And that's what he does. What your purpose is only defined by you, not anyone else. It's a reason that you feel that you're here, and it gets you out of bed in the morning. It brings you pleasure, it validates your life, keeps you going. It's absolutely necessary. And again, it usually involves helping other people, helping others. So now let's go to the first part of the title, the volunteering part. You can volunteer for many reasons, really, but usually the two we talk about it for a better community, right, or to help others. And we all get the feeling. I don't know why we ignore it. If you let someone out onto 28, the big long line in summer, let them out. Someone drops something, you pick it up. You open a door for someone. You feel good if you really admit it. You do, and you maybe tell yourself stories about how wonderful you are, but you do. You feel good. And now the neuroscience of that is that when we do those things, dopamine is released in our brain, and dopamine, it's like endorphins. It makes you feel good, and it's in the reward center of our brain. This is a problem for drug addicts and alcoholics because it's in the same area. But doing something like this makes us feel good, and we now know that what's going on in the brain. It's the physiologic equivalent of rewarding yourself for something and feeling good about it. So, you've all heard it's better to give than to receive, and that's true. But the fact is, you receive, and that's what they're trying to say. You receive more than you give, and it's not that you're selfish or anything like that. If you do something and you feel good, that shouldn't be the main reason, but it happens. It happens almost universally. So, does volunteering help, and do volunteers feel it's valuable? Well, it surely does help, because the impact of it is, for every 100 hours, it's worth about $3,400. And in 1 year, there's about $175 billion worth of impact in the country. So that's pretty impressive. And do volunteers feel it's valuable? I just talked about the dopamine thing, but there are 64 million volunteers who did something volunteer-wise in a year, and that amounts, it adds up to 8 billion hours of volunteering. So this is kind of common, you know? Nothing to be scared of, something you should, and obviously something where people are positively incentivized to volunteer and do something for someone else. So the benefits, all right, there's a lot. Personal development, you can see meeting new people. You can boost your CV, but you know, that shouldn't be the major one. Have fun, you certainly do. Be connected to others. Be part of the community, that's huge. For all the reasons that I was talking about. You want to live long, you got to move, you got to challenge your brain, you got to be socially connected, and you got to have meaning and purpose. This one is what we have been focusing on and will continue to focus. So look at this. This is just a small grocery list, Mayo Clinic, of the things that happen when you volunteer. You know, I think a few of those might be attractive to you. You know, it's there's a personal reward, there's a physical reward, and there's the quality of life award, all for you, as well as for the quality of life for the other person and how they feel about it. But the connection. This is, I don't know of any medical treatment that can give you a list of things like this. You know, really, there's none. There's the lifestyle we're talking about can, but if volunteering being part of it. And look at why is that? I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise, because when you volunteer, it can be physical, okay? It can be intellectual for sure. It definitely social, and don't we hear this, Candace, all the time, that the volunteers become friends, they really like it, really it's a bond that's there with the members that they visit. And finding meaning and purpose, I think that's logical, we've been talking about it, and it is there consistently. But before you say, okay, I'm gonna volunteer, you gotta ask yourself why. Why am I gonna do this? Now, I hope that I have convinced you that you can get a whole lot of health benefits, and not too many of us would refuse those health benefits that you can get. But, you know, there are people we know who do things so they can brag about them, you know. Okay, well, if some good things get done, that's all right, but that's not the makings of a volunteer who's effective as they can be. And so you should ask yourself why. And then ask yourself, what do I enjoy doing? You know, if you hate gardening, you're not going to pick weeds with someone. You know, that's kind of like punishment for you. And it shouldn't be that. It should be something that you enjoy doing, and you want to share that with someone else. Playing checkers or whatever. You know, you probably have lots of examples of what your volunteers do. And when it's something you enjoy doing, that's going to be sustainable. That makes sense. You still hesitant? Okay. Many people are hesitant because, you know, there are a lot of reasons we can talk ourselves out of this. So, you know, it's too big a deal. Well, we're going to show it's not a big deal to get into a volunteer network. They'll ask too much. That's not true, because with most organizations, they allow you to totally choose how much you volunteer and what you do. And it's not, you know, my family wouldn't want me doing it, or it's not consistent with my age. You know, glad that's changing anyway. I'll tell you a story. You know, I was a flight surgeon in the Air Force, and so I took care of flyers. And one of the flyers, I was at Edwards, which is the flight test center. And who walks in my office but Chuck Yeager? You know, he broke the sound barrier. So Chuck, I do his physical. He's flying for defense contractors now. He's in his late 50s. And so I do the physical. He's in great shape. And he sits down there and he just starts talking about his life. I cancel all my appointments. You know, like he did in the book. And then all of a sudden he gets quiet. He says, you know, Doc, I think on the 50th anniversary of breaking the sound barrier, I'm going to do it again. Well, I was about 35 at Doc. I thought I knew everything, you know. I said, well, Chuck, you'll be 75 years old then. He looked at me. What's your point? What was my point? Age was determining ability in my mind. And this is what our society does. And the worst offenders are us, we, the person themselves. To think that age is a major limitation that you can't surpass for what you can do for yourself or others. I learned that from a very important person. So Michelangelo said it very well. Greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, it's too low and we achieve it. There's a lot of research work done on expectations now, and now that we have brain scans and things, we're knowing a whole lot more. To the extent that we expect more, we're more likely to hit that. Thoreau said, you never hit anything you don't aim at. And we're learning that our society has led us to believe now that as older adults, those of us who are old, Francis Bacon didn't consider anyone old except if they were 15 years older than he was, whatever that was. And have led us to believe that older adults are out there to play golf and not to contribute to society and are marginalized, And that's okay to play golf, but they don't consider anything contributory relative to this society. In fact, there's a dangerous way where people are thinking just the opposite, we're just a drain. Anyway, and so to the extent we shoot low, that's usually what we achieve. James Joyce, kind of hero of mine, better to pass boldly to the other world in the full glory of some passion than to fade and wither with age. All right? Don't be on the fence about this. Like Yoda said, it's either do or don't do. We're hoping that today you get enough information to realize that this is something that is good for your health, that is good for others, and it's good for the community. And we're going to be asking questions, and all the board members and presidents and executive directors of Neighborhood Falmouth are here to answer your questions. Don't be like these guys. It is today. Make the decision today, If you're going to do it, do it, And again, it's totally under your control. You're not losing any control of your life. Whatever it is, for healthy longevity, we have to be connected, active, both physically and mentally, and fulfilled with meaning and purpose. And we need to continue growing. And so we need to find that environment, those things that will allow us to do that. And we'll benefit from that. So as we talk about volunteering, you're going to hear a lot about this, but there are other things, and I'll share this slide. You can get it from Neighborhood Falmouth, actually. I'll make sure you have this slide. And so these are just a very small sample of the potential ways that you can volunteer. But, we're kind of regional here. We would like you to think, local, And this is what Neighborhood Falmouth is, community-based, nonprofit. It's to help all Falmouth residents live independently, safely, comfortably, at home, as long as it's practical, by providing support. We just got some stats from the state of Massachusetts. For every person that stays in their home versus going into nursing or nursing care, the state saves $14,000 a month to the tune of $64 million a year. Neighborhood Falmouth, they should give you some of that, but they don't. But we'll at least give you the credit that we're doing good work, not only the quality of our work, and it's the right thing to do, but from a financial standpoint for the community, the state, it's the right thing. So there it is, and you don't have to be old to volunteer. We really like all ages to the extent we can. And I think those faces kind of say it all. And I'll stop there for any questions, but my backup is here for any questions, and I hope you have a lot of them about Neighborhood Falmouth, but about anything, healthy longevity, anything. Remember, this is about being selfless and selfish. Selfish in a good sense, in that you're taking care of yourself. This isn't just taking care of someone else. And sometimes we have to tell caregivers that, like in the oxygen mask thing in the airplane, put on your mask first. So this is about a win-win situation. And so Talk about positive incentivizing. It's here. So, any questions? Yes, please.
Was that a local woman on the last?
I don't believe so. The last slide?
There was a woman in town named Pendleton.
Uh,
I will swear that was her.
I usually don't, and this,
No.
no, there? No, I don't believe so, because I got this, I just wanted something to depict, and I usually try to avoid, you know, that's why I use so many animal slides. You don't get pushback.
Her husband was a well-known pediatrician here, and she did a lot of volunteering.
Really?
And she lived into her 90s. She guessed that's what she looked like.
That would be a total coincidence, but maybe that angelic face is on all of our volunteers, you know? Any other questions? Yes?
Just wondering where that statistic comes from about the cost or cost saving to the state of Massachusetts for taking care of seniors in, I guess, assisted living, because I got some relatives in assisted living and they're paying out of pocket. So the state doesn't have anything.
Yeah, many are, but Medicaid, Candace, you got the statistic, right?
Yeah, I was at a meeting of the Barnstable County Health and Human Services where they're instituting, I think statewide, a healthy aging and dementia-friendly communities, community by community. So I was just at a sort of a planning session, and that was one of the steps that they shared with us, that, you know, the cost of having people stay home longer is really, it's about $14,000 per month to go into, not assisted living, into a nursing home.
So maybe we misinterpreted thinking that that was a state saving.
Yeah.
It's what someone has to pay.
It's,
Yeah,
Mike-
I think
Mike-
it's, yeah, it's part of it is keeping people out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And if you're on Medicaid,
yes,
you go in the hospital, the state pays for that.
Yeah.
And that can really add up.
So the savings is there, but the state said this, so I mean, they must be thinking of their books.
exactly.
Can you describe it all as dementia-friendly?
Well, again, they're just getting it, I guess this was a thing that was happening before COVID, and then COVID sort of, you know, threw a monkey wrench in those plans. But earlier this year, in the summer, the state did some listening sessions around the state in a bunch of the communities. They invited people from the community to come in and talk about what their needs would be as an aging community. Things like, you know, what do they want to see in their own communities? And, you know, you could probably guess what the top things were. Again, access to healthcare, transportation, more social things. And so the state actually is now looking at all of the data that they collected, and now they're going county by county to sort of come up with real action plans. So like this session that I just told you about that I went to at the Barnstable County, we actually spent about 3 hours sort of talking about, you know, what was heard in those sessions. But for our county, what are the top, I think we boiled it down to 5 or 6 different initiatives. So we've identified them. Now the next step will be to get some girth behind them and to get, you know, some people involved in really putting these things into action. Volunteering was actually top of the list. So again, getting more volunteers, you know, again, doing things like this around the country really, and really talking about the health benefits of volunteering for the person themselves as well as for those that they serve. So, you know, again, would it be a statewide initiative to, you know, do some promotion and PR about volunteering? Would that, you know, be something that the state would want to do? Maybe that's the thing. But again, there are 4 or 5 other big initiatives that, again, there will be people that will sort of gravitate towards one committee or the other to really get these things put into practice.
You may have heard of the village movement. It's going across the country. That basically, the neighborhood Falmouth grew out of that, as this says, which started in Beacon Hill, by the way. The first village was in Beacon Hill. and now we got 350. And it's basically to keep people in their homes. It started out just by, where do I get a plumber, an electrician, or something like that, and has evolved into offering much more than that. Yes?
Does Falmouth have any sort of volunteer fair kind of thing? That all these nonprofits come together in one spot and just sort of shop some of it? Does that happen?
It does, actually. The Newcomers Club is doing one of these fairs actually in November. And all of the nonprofits that utilize volunteers are invited to come, and I'm sure they're going to promote that. I believe it's happening at the First Congregational Church, and that's in community room, so that's in November. I can't remember the date of it after, but good question.
I think the senior center has a fair too, that a lot of these organizations.
Well, actually, they just had their open house, and it was really good. It's a senior resource open house, and a lot of the nonprofits were there as well. So that was a great event.
So I was impressed. I just joined the board a little less than a year ago, and so I'm just learning about it. You may recognize this guy here.
Yeah, that guy.
You look very big in that.
Yeah, you're sleeping, but a lot. I mean, the sky's the limit. But when it really comes down to it, if you had to hone down, it's about having another person to speak with, maybe to talk about a problem, or just to be there. This is a scourge that is affecting our society, and I'm really proud that this community is doing something about it. So our country is a little slow. Other countries are not. They're addressing it because it is a deadly environment for health, longevity. It's like my buddy who was in prison. It's just a horrible thing. Yes, Mike. This is Dr. Mike, and he's a past president. This guy is a volunteer's volunteer, really. And his wife Marion, so.
Yeah.
So yes, Mike.
You have mentioned before the ministries of loneliness. And in one of the talks I gave here, I had done some research in England, about it.
Please, yeah.
And it was really fascinating. They have a ministry of loneliness, and interestingly, it was set up by the conservative government, whose bottom line was to save money.
Yes.
Because they recognized that keeping people at home, kept them out of the National Health Service and out of the hospital. But in the process of doing that, they set up a whole state-sponsored and paid-for network of services around the entire country. So you could pick up the phone and call somebody and make an appointment to have an hour-long conversation with somebody. So there were all kinds of services. They pulled the British Red Cross into it. And it really is interesting. The only downside of it is that, and maybe it's changing now because the government has changed, is that there was some feeling that the government was making people stay in their homes too long. But it really had made a difference. In fact, that was recognized by the state.
See,
We get no money from any government organization. And, it would be nice for the state and for the town, to support, some of those things.
would it be fair to say even conservatives like to do good things? Sorry about that. We're in Massachusetts. It's usually safe in Massachusetts. 3,600 visits.
People send all back. Their adults
So members are the people who are wanting the services, and volunteers are the people who provide them. And so I get confused when I first joined. But what do they need? There it is in red, volunteers. They have a waiting list of people who need services to stay in their home and can't provide them because of the limited volunteers that they have. So I wouldn't say there'd be a red carpet and trumpets as you enter the office, but you would be well received, you know. And now it's on the first floor. You don't even have to walk up. Yeah, it's over on Byway across from Coffee Obsession around there. Yeah, so first floor, nice digs. So any other questions? This is the future of neighborhood Falmouth, but doesn't have to be neighborhood Falmouth. I think that's a good one. But, you know, if you enjoy doing something else, there's lots of opportunity. And, you know, you can go nationally to AARP and, you know, they will give you something local. But there's just just a wealth of opportunity. If you just Google volunteer, as I had earlier, you're going to get some ideas. And you'll be better for it. The community will be better for it. Yes?
You mentioned the demographic, I think, but I was confused whether it was population of Falmouth or specifically neighborhood Falmouth, about people living alone or in couples and with somebody else. So I wasn't sure whether general or neighborhood Falmouth.
Are you?
You were talking about neighborhood Falmouth.
Right,
and-
yeah, I was talking about neighborhood
Yeah.
Falmouth, yes. What would you say are the percentage that are live alone?
70%
70
probably live
alone.
Yep.
And the other, you know, significantly impaired couple, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How old's your oldest?
100.
And she's a dancer, right, or something? Yeah.
200. Yeah, we have two
Yeah.
that are 100 years old. Yeah. So, and one of them goes line dancing 3 times a week.
She got the message, yeah.
Unbelievable. The other's a great gardener too, so. We have a lot of folks in their 90s as well.
Mike?
Yeah, I think the town's demographic is about 33, 34% over age 65. If you look at age 60 and over, it's over 40%. And that is growing as the boomer population, which is quite large locally, is aging. And probably there are statistics that you might find online from the county that tells you the number of households by age and the number of people who are living.
Didn't our meeting say that this is the second oldest county in the country?
Yes.
As far as the average age on
Yes.
this county?
Really?
Yeah.
What's first?
It's Naples, Florida or something.
Naples.
They call that God's waiting room.
Half the population is from there.
So we're outside in line, I guess, yeah. Wow, okay, well, yes.
I have a curiosity about how many of those people living alone have pets. Because that's a really good way to stay connected.
Exactly, and I would say less than half, and actually probably of those folks that live alone, very few have pets.
Yeah.
Neighborhood Falmouth people, yeah.
Did you read that Japan now has robot pets? They're robots, but they're pets and have fur and things. This because it does make a difference. People with pets have lower blood pressure. They just tend to be much more engaged. However, that said, my neighbor had a golden doodle, and he just took it for a walk, and it took off and dragged him.
Yep. He
was in the hospital for months, and he's still not right, you know. So you'd have to choose your pets, you know. Maybe a turtle, you know. But you're absolutely right. If I lived alone, I'd definitely have a pet. My son does. He has 2 golden retrievers in Oregon, and you know he's happy as a clam because he had some bad experiences with people. Yes.
A few years ago, when I was on the membership committee in neighborhood Falmouth, we toyed with the idea of trying to find volunteers by neighborhoods. Volunteers and members coming together at somebody's house for coffee and going from there.
Beautiful.
So the person that wants to be a volunteer would get to know a member and be more comfortable in trying to.
Great idea. It never came to fruition.
Maybe we should explore that again.
I like the idea. it'll be discussed at the next board meeting, maybe?
The next membership.
Because, you know, people don't live in cities. They break them down into neighborhoods, because that's all we can really wrap our heads around, because hunter-gatherers, we were just tribes. And so wherever we are, we'll break it down, and that's another way to do that, so, excellent. Yes?
I'm just thinking, the organization Partners in Health, has done a lot of work like in Haiti and Lesotho and, trying to think of one of the Russian republics. But, what they do is come into a community and they train a neighbor to look in on someone who needs medical help. And they go to the doctor, yes, but that neighbor will make sure they take their medicine. So maybe what you need is not Partners in Health so much as, a partner, a neighbor who could walk your dog, that sort of thing. So.
Absolutely.
I'd be happy to volunteer as a dog walker for someone who wants to have a dog, maybe get them out walking too. Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's another reason it's so healthy. In Denmark, in neighborhoods, if you're going to buy a house in a neighborhood, you have to sign an agreement for that neighborhood where if someone needs help, you will help and they will help you. It's sort of like just 10, 20 houses, something like that. It's what we did for for our whole history as humans, and before we made the mistake of giving electric garage door openers and no front porches and that sort of thing, where we sort of buried ourselves from others. Well, if there are no more questions, I want to thank you for coming, and let's help each other out. Thanks for coming, Bill. Thanks for coming.
No, God love you. I learned a lot from you today.
Really?
Yeah.
Still, yeah?
No.
Good to hear.